Hi everyone, this is Aaron for Zolotech, and I wanted to give you my opinion on the Xbox One controller versus the PS4 controller. I've used both extensively since they've come out. It's been a few weeks now, and I thought I'd share with you what I think between the two and what I thought about the previous ones, and just give my overall opinion and see what you think as well. So here's the PS4 controller, obviously, and the Xbox One. Let's go over the controller itself, and then we'll talk more about which one I like and why. Now here's our analog sticks, obviously, PlayStation button, speaker, touchpad. We have options and share. We have a D-pad, our traditional square, triangle, circle, X. And on the bottom, we have an external port and a headphone jack port. On this side, we have our triggers. You've got L1, L2, R1, R2. In the bottoms here are triggers. These are buttons. You also have a little light bar. It's blue when you're player 1, red when you're player 2, and it's also used for the PlayStation Move camera if you have that. And then you've got a USB or a micro USB charge port. On the bottom, it's nicely contoured. It's got a nice textured back, and there's only a couple screws you can see right there. Nothing really on the sides. The Xbox One controller has been updated also, and you can see it has a matte finish now. It's a different texture. We have smaller analog sticks. We have an updated D-pad. We also have updated buttons. They look basically real similar, but they've changed it a little more transparent the way it looks. If you go and look at a 360, it's subtle, but it's nice. You also have a menu and kind of picture-in-picture button. They replaced the select buttons. I'm not really sure why start select with these, but it's menu and I think like a picture-in-picture, although this doesn't seem to work that often. We also have our home button, and this also turns on the console, as does the PlayStation button on the PS4 controller. On the top, we have our sync button to sync with the console. We also have two IR emitters that are behind this, and that lets the Xbox Kinect camera know who's holding the controller. So if I'm holding it, I pass it off to someone else. It knows the camera or the controller 1 has been moved. And then you can see here's our USB charge port. It's micro USB again. We have our bumpers and our triggers. They've also added vibrate into each trigger. They call them impulse triggers. And then we have a battery pack, and they include two AA batteries with it. These are the originals. This controller's lasted quite a while. And then on the bottom, we have a proprietary microphone jack for your headset. And this right here, I believe, is another microphone. So those are the controllers. Now, out of the two, they're both great controllers, and they're both pretty comfortable to hold. My hands are very large, so when I hold this controller, my hand wraps around it. So you can see my hand wraps around the top, and I don't hit the triggers anymore like I did on the 360 with the tips of my fingers, or right here, I hit them with the middle of my finger, which I actually don't like as much. I tried to get used to it. I'm not used to it. I really don't like it. It's contoured and it's comfortable, but I just don't like, I feel like I have less control, and maybe that's just me and I should hold it differently, but it's uncomfortable if I hold it this way. We also have bumpers that have been modified more so that you can rock onto them. And I actually don't like those as much either. You can hold the controller like this, and it's comfortable, but it's not comfortable over time, at least not for me. Now, other people may have a different opinion of that, and that's fine, but for me, it's just not as comfortable. The analog sticks, they've actually taken some tension off of them, which I don't like, but they've added this grip and this little dip down, which I do like. So your fingers sit in here better. They don't slide off as easy, but it is easier to push, which actually is more difficult for me to be accurate with. Some people, it's easier to be accurate. It just is your taste in analog sticks. If you're coming from a PS3, you'll probably love it. If you're coming from a 360, it could go either way. These buttons have been refined a little bit. The menu buttons don't click as nice as the 360 controller, in my opinion. The D-pad is much nicer than the 360, but nowhere near as nice as the PS4's D-pad. Now, I have to let you know that I actually greatly prefer the Xbox 360 over the PS3. However, in this case, I prefer the PS4 and its controller. It's way more comfortable for me to hold. Given that I have big hands, you can see that I'm holding it like this, and my fingers rest between the joint in my pointer finger here. You can see it rests like that, and I can just slide them back and use it like this. I can use the buttons easily. It just feels more comfortable to me, and that's my personal experience with it. The analog sticks have been given way more tension than the PS3. In fact, they have the same as the 360, maybe even a little bit more. They're rubber coated, and your fingers don't really slip out of these as well either. Maybe a little easier than the Xbox One, but not very easy at all. The D-pad is fantastic on the PS4 controller, as are the buttons. The buttons up here, the option and share button, are kind of goofy in their placement. Now, I don't know if they did this on purpose so that you couldn't bump into them, but it's hard to push. They have a solid click to them where you really have to make sure that's what you're pushing, or you'll know that that's what you're pushing. You can't just easily accidentally hit them. The touchpad seems kind of useless at this point. You can navigate Assassin's Creed maps with it. I actually don't use it. I go back to the analog sticks. But overall, it hopefully will be nice in the future when it's probably used in some more games. The other thing that makes this controller a little bit different is it has a speaker here, and on the bottom, this is my absolute favorite thing I've ever seen in a console, actually controller, is the headphone jack. This headphone jack allows me to use any headset with a microphone for my game chat. So I've been using just traditional iPhone earphones or the ear pods with it, and everyone can hear me well. I can hear the game, and it sounds great. So I use that, and I really like that. It's just streamed wirelessly to the controller into your ears. Now, that does reduce some of the battery life. I probably get between 5 and 7 hours battery life before I plug it in, which to me isn't a big deal. I can just plug it in while I'm playing and then unplug it, or plug it in while you're not playing, and it will charge either way. The triggers on the back here are really nice. They're much, much better than the PS3 triggers. They're more like the Xbox 360, but not as nice, quite honestly, as the 360 or the Xbox One triggers. These are a little nicer as far as the impulse triggers that shake when you're playing something like Forza. You'll feel acceleration on this trigger, braking on this trigger. It's really nice, and the triggers are fine. They work well. They're just not as nice as the other. Everything else, though, in my opinion, is better as far as the controllers go. The weight is about the same. Maybe the Xbox One's slightly heavier, but you can see everything else feels about the same as far as quality and build, although this D-pad does feel a little bit cheap, I guess. But other than that, everything feels good build quality-wise. And there's something about this seam here that makes me think it's going to break. I don't know if that's just me being paranoid, but it just doesn't. Being picky, you normally have the seam in the middle of the controller, just as the 360 does, and it just feels like it's a cheap plastic overlay. That's my opinion, obviously, and you can see a lot of different marks in the top of this controller from this matte finish. That's not a big deal as your hands cover it most of the time, but over time I just find that this controller is not anywhere near as comfortable as the PS4 or the Xbox 360 controller. The way it sits in my palms actually hurts. I know some people have gotten used to it, but I actually would prefer they use the 360 controller and maybe make a couple modifications like the impulse triggers. Now, I've talked about these a lot. Let me mention one more thing, and that is the headphone jack. Why they made it proprietary, I don't know. They should have just stuck with what they had on the 360, and people are making adapters. That would have been way better to do than what they've done here. They should have just gone the route of PS4 and made this let you use your own headsets and whatever you wanted. I'm curious as to what you guys think of which controller is better. Either way, I'm going to be playing games on both. That's just my very picky opinion of which one is better. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Which one do you like better and why? Which console did you buy, or have you bought both, or which ones have you tried? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.